The first flakes of snow fallen over Ponyville, blanketing its colorful cottages in soft white powder. Hearth-swarming decorations adorn every street, streams of fairy lights, wreaths on doors, ornaments on all shapes and sizes. Sugar Cube Corner was no exception. Its gingerbread-like facade practically glowed within its festive charm. Inside, Pinkie Pie was a whirlwind of her holiday cheer. She zipped back and forth, hanging garlands and arranging the desserts with her usual excrements. But this year, the centerpiece of her display was something special, and had brought back with her from her latest adventure. Ta-da! Pinkie held up a sprig of glittering mistletoe, much larger than the silver-tinged leaves, shimmered as if dust with frost, and its cinnamon berries seemed to glow softly. Straight from the snowy tundra of Yavaskinson. Isn't it just perfect? And so sturdy, I carried it all the way home in my saddlebags, and it's completely intact for me to use as decoration over the counter. Twilight tilted her head, examining the sprig at her friend, and held. It's unique. Are you sure it's safe to use? The Alaskan flora can be pretty magical, and not always in a good way. Pinkie waved a hoof dismissively. Oh, it's fine. All Yak said it doesn't bother them at all. It grows all around their houses at this time of year. Plus, I carried a ton of it back, and I'm fine. Look how cute it is. It's hearth-warming spirit in the plant form. So much prettier than the plain old mistletoe we grow in Equestria. Twilight was still very worried, but had to admit Pinkie was right. It was indeed pretty, and the mistletoe was a staple of hearth-warming Eve's tradition. And Pinkie was indeed fine. She had been back for a week, and suffered no ill effects from her close contact with the plants. And I brought enough to decorate your castle for the hearth-warming party. Pinkie gestured at the bulging saddlebag Twilight had come to collect, so she could get started on decorating. It's super special and awesome for you to hold it in your castle this year, Twilight. Twilight smiled. Well, within that room, it makes sense to hold it there instead of squashing every pony into Applejack's barn. And warmer, too, no matter how security they rebuilt that thing. The walls always let the cold air in. Oh, I don't know if it's all really that bad, Pinkie winked at her. A little shivering is a good reason to snuggle up to some pony special, especially if that some pony happens to be under the sprig of the mistletoe. She puckered her lips, making kissing sounds. At Twilight rolled her eyes good naturally. Aw, come on. Isn't there any pony here you like to snuggle up with? Twilight bit her lip. No? Pinkie's eyes widened. I knew it! Who is it? Come on, tell me! Tell me! Oh, hey, look at the time! Twilight scooped a sack of decorations and her saddlebag of mistletoe in the magical field. I really have to get going. You'll be open to customers soon, and you wouldn't need me getting in the way. Pinkie stuck her tongue out. Spoil sport! The new mistletoe was hung with great pride over the calf's counter, and he saw it. Mr. Cake promptly pulled his wife into a hug and kissed her soundly, making her blush and goggle like a mare half her age. As the day went on, ponies passing through the cold could not resist stopping to admire the enormous sprig, in some infectious, and kissing their own special sun ponies in it. Pinkie's enthusiasm for all things hearth-warming was infectious, and soon the entire town was abuzz with excitement for the hearth-warming party she and Twilight were planning. Yet by the end of the week, ponies began to whisper of strange things happening. Mrs. Cake was first to fall ill, normally her cheery demeanor replaced with a pallid complexion of labored breathing. Her husband soon followed, leaving Pinkie Pie to care for the twins of her own. It was then Bonbon who collapsed in the middle of their candy shop floor, coughing up pigum of what appeared to be dusted with frost. Then Lyra Heartstrings fainted in the middle of town squares, while galloping to the hospital with her sick wife. By the time a dozen ponies had been hospitalized, the connection was clear. Every single one of them had visited Sugar Cube Corner and kissed some pony under the mistletoe above the counter. And each of the houses where infected lived had sprouted fresh mistletoe with glowing red berries above their doors. Twilight paced the floor of her study, hooves clicking against the crystalline floor. Scrolls and books were strewn around her desk, open pages detailing magic fungi, parasitic plants, and arcane remedies. Spike hovered nearby, scribbling the notes as Twilight muttered half to him. After herself in the corner, surrounded by her own pile of books, Starlight Glimmer snored, having to fall asleep after pulling an all-nighter, trying to find more of the Yakistani variant of mistletoe. A passage to the Yakistani and to ask Prince Rutherford for more information if possible now, was the route cut off by the yearly blizzards, and the Yak students at the School of Friendship had long since gone home to evade that yearly event. Spike had tried sending letters until Twilight pointed out that the Yaks had no way of replying with the roads blocked, and they were on their own. Magical spores, symbiotic growths, patterns, resistant to healing magic. The sprig from Sugar Cube Corner didn't burn when Pinkie tried that. Ugh! Twilight groaned and rubbed her temples. Nothing matches. This mistletoe doesn't behave like any other plant I've read about. If I didn't know any better, I'd say it's almost malicious. What should we ask Princess Celestia for help? Spike suggested cautiously. I already sent her a letter. She is consulting with the royal bonuses. But even if we did find something, it might take too long to symphonize the antidote to get it here to Ponyville. We're running out of time. Who knows what this infection could do if left unchecked? Twilight glanced at the map of Ponyville, pinned to the wall. Red dots marked infected homes. The illness was spreading fast. There was no telling on how far it may spread. If ponies who had visited Sugar Cube Corner went home and the infected other ponies there, who then went on to infect the other ponies? Who then? Twilight shook her head to dislodge the thought spiral. There was nothing else for it. Safety precautions had been taken. I'm going to put a shield spell around Ponyville, like my brother did around Canterlot before his wedding, so the infection can't get out until we find out a way to remediate it. The entire town is on lockdown. But Twilight, Spike started. No, Spike, I don't often do it, but I'm putting my hoof down as this Princess of Equestria. Ponyville is officially under quarantine, and send a letter to a mayor, letting her know of my decision. Okay. She won't be happy about it, because a lot of ponies head out of town for Hearthwarming Eve, and they'll be trapped inside this shield spell. She'll be even less happy if this illness gets out of town with them. Twilight headed up for the tallest tower of her castle, summoned all the power she could, and let the pink bubble billowed outward from her horn until it encased of all Ponyville. It would usually take her all of her strength to cast a spell, but since becoming an alicorn, it required a fraction of her power to cast and maintain. Satisfied that there were no gasps in her shields, she headed back to her study. Just as she arrived, however, windows slammed open, and Rainbow Dash flew in, her mane wind blown and her face grim. Starlight Glimmer startled awake, and Spike let out a sputtered plume of green fire. Twilight! Dash panted. Sweet Apple Acres! Help is bad! Rainbow Dash, take a deep breath. Twilight's heart sank. None of her friends had fallen ill yet. Was this about to change? What had happened? Rainbow Dash took several deep breaths and pointed back at the window with one hoof. Big Mac's infected. He's collapsed in the field this morning, and he's looking worse every minute since they got him home. Sugar Bell's sick too, but even worse, Applejack says they need you. She doesn't know what to do since it all happened so fast. They were both fine this morning. Twilight's wings dropped. Okay, she stilled herself. She may have not had any miraculous breakthroughs through her search to her cure, but Applejack needed her. Twilight knew how hard it was for Applejack to ask any pony for help. She had done so now, and was a testament how desperate she was. Twilight could not let her down. Spike, keep working on the antidote research with Starlight. Rainbow, get Fluttershy and Rarity to help set up the quarantine zone around Sweet Apple Acres to keep the rubbernecks away. I'll go to Applejack. Yet as she followed Dash out the window, Twilight hesitated. The air was heavy, with strange sweet aroma, like burnt sugar over ripe berries. She shook her head, and hurried to catch up with Dash, heart pounding. Snowflakes swirled hazily in the breeze of their passing, but something else drifted with them, almost invisible, and unnoticed their haste go to help their friend, tiny glimmering specks like frost dust. At Sweet Apple Acres the scene was grim. Rows of apple trees stood bare, their branches weighed down by clusters of mistletoe had seemingly sprung up overnight. Twilight gaped. This was not only a few sprigs over the doorway like in town. The farmhouse windows were shuttered, and crude quarantine sign had been nailed to the front door. Ponies miled out the lane, seemingly drawn by the morbid curiosity. "I'll take care of the unwanted spectators," Dash growled. "You go help Applejack, Twy." She then changed her course, but dive-bombed on the lookers. "Hey, get out of here! Go home! You don't know what this stuff is dangerous! Don't get too close to it, you idiots!" Applejack greeted Twilight at the farmhouse, and her hat pulled down to her face lined with exhaustion. "Thanks for coming, Twy. I hate to ask, but I'm worried we're losing Sugar Belle. She is disorientating fast. And," she dropped her voice to a low whisper, "something's growing out of her horn and mouth." Twilight's stomach churned, but forced herself to nod. "I'll do what I can for her." "Thank you, Twilight. You're the best." Twilight tried to ignore the little fizzle of pleasure inside of those words. Now it was not the time for thoughts like that. She had done many times before. She had pushed them aside and focused on the task at hoof. Inside the farmhouse, the air was stifling. Sweet, coiling smell was stronger there, mingling with the faint, coppery tang of blood. Big Mac lay on the makeshift cot in the living room, barrel chest heaving. Applejack was strong, but evidently she had been not be able to lift him upstairs. Sugar Belle was in the bedroom, as she usually was shared with him, gasping at the amid sweat-drenched sheets on her bed. Green tendrils coiled from her mouth and nostrils. Her lips were blooming into tiny clusters of growing berries. Her eyes fluttered open briefly, meeting Twilight's look of silent pleading. At the bottom of her horn, where the petals were unfurled, Twilight lit her own horn, scanning Sugar Belle's body with diagnostic spells. The results made her chest tighten with alarm. The mistletoe wasn't just growing, it was emerging with the unicorn's flesh, feeding off of her life force, and especially her magic. "Applejack, Twilight began. A sudden cry from outside of her cut off. She just then turned in time to see Rainbow Dash dart away from some of the pony onlookers on the lane. The stallion collapsed, body convulsing. Dash flew to the sky, hiding behind a cloud, as he and Twilight and Applejack watched in horror as the stallion's midsection swelled grotesquely, skin writhing like it was full of snakes. Then his belly and chest burst open, coils of mistletoe bursting outwards in the spray of vines, blood and vice versa. The other ponies looked around them and screamed and fled, but Twilight knew it was already too late. A huge burst of sparkling dust had erupted from the dead pony along with the vines, spores, and they were everywhere. By the time Twilight returned to the castle, night had fallen. Ponyville was no longer the cheerful town she loved. The streets were deserted except for the faint movements of infected ponies stumbling aimlessly, vines and berries sprouting from their bare bodies like monstrous hearth-warming decorations. Every window was secured, every door locked tight, and the only light that came from the mistletoe itself. Red berries glowed faintly in the dark. Glittering spores coated everything. Twilight maintained the magical shield, which she had coated the entire body, dashed into the castle, and slammed the door shut behind her. She leaned against them, trembling. Spike ran up, eyes with worry. "Twilight, are you okay?" He already knew everything like she did, thanks to the massive teleported ham form from Sweet Apple Acres. "How are Sugar Belle and Big Mac?" "I'm fine," she lied, "and they're both alive, but it's worse than I thought. The mistletoe's spreading faster than we can contain it. Even if I can't find a cure, I need to work on a counterspell to hold it back until before it infects and kills everyone in Ponyville. There's no time to lose." Her friends were gathered in the map room, faces grim. Pinkie Pie sat in the corner, uncharacteristically silent, hugging Pound and Pumpkin Cake to their chest. Rarity paced anxiously while Fluttershy and Rainbow Dash whispered quietly to each other. Starlight stared fixedly at the teacup. For some reason, Twilight could not fathom of what looked up at her entrance. "Any progress?" Twilight asked. Rarity shook her head. "We've done everything we could to warn ponies and stay indoors, but I don't think it's enough. There's too much panic, and there are already too many infected. And the mistletoe is spreading faster than I could have thought possible, if I had not seen it for myself." She took a steadying breath. I'm so grateful my family was in Manhattan visiting relatives for the holidays. I told them not to come home until they get a word that's safe. They're worried about me, but, well, Cloudsdale isn't infected, Rainbow Dash added, after Rarity trailed off. They've created a protective cloud layer to keep the spores out, though. That's good. But what if some spores get into the rain clouds? Fluttershy asked. They won't all be transported to Equestria. Not if I make a counterspell to neutralize them, Twilight said grimly. Now, I know that's not how the infection is spreading, but I have a basis to work from. At least my shield spell over the town is holding. It will keep the spores from getting further than the borders of Ponyville. Fluttershy's voice was barely audible. Twilight, what happens if we can't stop it? What if it's really out there? Twilight did not answer. She didn't need to. The dire truth was written all over her face. I'll find a way, she said finally. I have to. I'm going to cast the shield spell now. You all stay here where it's safe. I hermetically sealed the room so no spores get in. Don't let anyone aside from me in or out until I tell you it's safe. She and her friends nodded, though for the tension of the room was palatable. Twilight retreated to her study with the weight of the world pressing down on her. Hours had passed as Twilight pored over the bounty texts and magical formulas, quills scratching furiously. Her study was silent except for the occasional crackle of the fireplace and the buzz of the horn powering the shield spell. The clock ticked ominously, each sound reminding her of how little time she had to fix this problem. A knock on her study door startled her. She had especially told her friends not to leave the map room. Come in, she called. Without looking up, it was probably Spike. She had not eaten or drank anything in a long time, and while the desire to help her sometimes outweighed his desire to follow her instructions, he was her number one assistant after all. The study door creaked open. Instead of dragon claws, she heard footsteps behind her. Twilight turned and looked in surprise. Applejack, what are you doing here? I thought you were staying in Sweet Apple Acres with your family. Applejack stood in the doorway, her hat clutching her hooves. Her mane was disheveled, and her eyes were simmered with something Twilight couldn't place. Desperation? Sorrow? Guilt? I needed to see you. Applejack's voice was tremendous as she swallowed, in a low voice. Big Mac. Twilight's ribcage changed to a bear trap around her lungs. Oh no, is he? Applejack squeezed her eyes shut and nodded. Sugar Belle, too, just like that stallion in that lane. Oh, sweet Celestia, Applejack, I'm so sorry. They were reaching for each other as they died. She got out of bed and crawled downstairs when she felt coming. She didn't want to be without him for her last moments. Twilight frowned. You were in the room with them. Applejack, you shouldn't have. I know, Applejack interrupted. My nephew got away from me and ran to see his parents. I chased him, but I didn't get him out in time. She took a step closer, her voice trembling. Twilight, I need to say something. I might not get another chance. Twilight's blood turned into ice. Not another chance? I've been thinking about this for a long time, seeing Big Mac and Sugar Belle at the end like that. I can't keep it in anymore. Twilight Sparkle, I'm in love with you. The words hung in the air, heavy and bittersweet. Twilight's eyes widened, mind racing. She had hoped in her many secret heart of hearts, but never had fought, had never wanted to risk their friendship by even entering the idea. Before she could respond, Applejack closed the distance between them and kissed her. It happened so fast Twilight's mind was just short-circuited. For a moment she could all feel was the warmth of Applejack's lips and the feel of Applejack's hoof against her cheek. The sight of Applejack's green eyes closing to savor the kiss. For one more sweet, shining movement, Twilight lost herself in the press of another mare's mouth in that what could have been. But then a strange tingling sensation curled through her mouth, like a dozen tiny, cold tongues unfurling against her teeth and palate. One reached down her throat. Twilight broke the kiss and pulled back, coughing violently. Applejack, what? That's when she saw it. Tiny green entrails were already began to sprout from Applejack's lips and nostrils. Her eyes were bloodshot and her breathing was labored. Now that she had stepped into the firelight, Twilight could see her whole body was covered in dry blood and glistening spores. "I'm sorry," Applejack choked out, tears streaming down her face. "But it's too late. It's too late for all of us. We're already dead, Twi. There ain't no cure that will save us. So I had to see you one last time. I couldn't die without telling you that. Applejack's body convulsed. She collapsed onto her side with a terrible groan. Blood, what looked like dusted with frost, seeped from her nose and tear ducts. "Applejack!" Vines erupted from the earth pony's chest and stomach, wrapping around her like a blood-soaked cocoon. Twilight screamed as she was thrown aback, shielding herself with a magic barrier. Leaves and white petals and glowing red berries butted up against her shield, as if trying to pry a way to get at her. Applejack's wide, staring eyes disappeared from view. When the chaos subsided, all that was left was a tangled mass of gore-splattered mistletoe, berries glowing faintly in the midst of Twilight's study. Twilight staggered at her hooves. "Applejack, no!" she whispered, her voice cracking. "No, no, no!" Molding her shield spell around her body, she rushed to the mirror at the fireplace and opened her mouth. Inside she could already see vines coiling around her tongue, her tips blooming into minuscule red berries. The mistletoe worked on faster on ponies with magic, if she had more magic than anyone else in Ponyville. Panic surged through her. She had spent days trying to find a cure or a counterspell, but now it was too late. The spores were inside her, feasting on her flesh. Supercharged with her magic life force, she knew that what would come next. Twilight sank to the floor, tears streaming down her cheeks. She thought of her friends, waiting in the map room to hear the good news from her. She thought Applejack's final words and the look in her eyes before the end. Applejack had known it was already too late. And she was right. Twilight's chest tightened. It had been too late from the moment Pinkie Pie had brought that damn mistletoe back with her. Of course it did not affect the acts negatively, but they did have a long enough magic to nearly trigger them worst effects. Ponies, however, she quickly fetched a parchment sheaf of paper and began to write. Hearth-warming eve dawned and cold and still. The castle of friendship stood silent, completely shrouded in vines. Mistletoe hung in every corner, crimson berries glowing like the Macquarie holiday nights in the room. So much red, it looked like it had been decorated too. In Princess Twilight's study, a fire had burnt out. A letter lay on the table. "Dear Princess Celestia, by the time you read this, it may already be too late for me. The spores have taken a hold, and I know what's coming. I've watched it happen. I'm not afraid to die, but when I'm afraid what will happen if the infection spreads beyond Ponyville. Unless you've found a cure for the infection, it's too late for this town and the ponies in it. The mistletoe spores aren't like anything we have ever faced. They thrive on warmth and magic, feeding on every instance of life. The more magical a host, the faster they work. They don't stop, they don't relent. They already claim so many. Even as now I write this, I can feel them growing inside me. I don't have much time, so I must be brief. I've placed a protective shield around the town, holding back the infected vines and spores as best I can. But the spell is tied with magic. When I die, it will fail. And when that happens, there will be nothing to stop the spores from escaping into the winds and spreading across Equestria. I will hold on to as long as I can, but I don't know how long it will be until you must act swiftly, Princess. When my shield drops, I beg you, use your magic to destroy Ponyville. Leave no trace of the town's castle or mistletoe. Initiate it all on the salt ground. The lives of so many depended on containing this infection here, no matter what the cost. I know what I'm asking you. Ponyville has always been a place of friendship, magic, and hope. I was where I've grown and where I laughed and where I've lived some of the happiest days of my life. And I think I may have been more than had everything has been. If destroying it means saving the rest of Equestria, then I can accept that fate. I'm sorry, I couldn't save my friends. Please congregate them. They didn't ask for this, but they'll pay the price for it, along with the rest of the town. I am not able to ask them, but I'm sure they would agree with my requests of you. Thank you, Princess, for everything. for trusting me, for guiding me, and for teaching me what it means to be a leader. I hope that in my death, I can do one last bit of good in this world. Please don't hesitate. The moment my magic fades and Ponyville is revealed, you must act with precision, speed, and lethal force. Promise me that you will. Your faithful student internally, Twilight Sparkle. Beside the desk lay a tangle of vines studied within the mistletoe. Twilight had tried until the end to do the right thing. She had fought every atom of her being, but it had not been enough. The mistletoe had taken too much of her by the time she tried to send the letter, with petals bloomed at the tip of the growing horn, snuffing out the very last of alicorn magic. Outside, the shield-round pony club flickered and died. The wind howled, carrying the tiny silver spores that looked like dustings of frost beyond Ponyville, across the empty sky. Hearthwarming's Eve will never be the same again. What's up, my pretties? It's the Lion Queen here. I want to appreciate you all for tuning into this video, and I do appreciate you guys supporting my video by giving this video likes and stuff. If you really enjoyed this video, be sure to leave a like, comment and subscribe if you're new, ring the bell for notifications to when I upload so that way you guys will get updated for whenever I upload. If you want to follow me on Twitter or DeviantArt, feel free to leave a follow on those if you are interested in following me on those socials. If you want to support my backup channel, known as Miss Dark Shigo, feel free to subscribe to it, as a link to that will also be in the About page section. And with that being said, and that being the case, thank you so much for watching, my pretties, and as always, stay pretty.